Hi, I'm Barbara O'Brien. I'm an animal trainer and photographer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Empathetic Trainer. Hi, this is Barbara O'Brien, and you're listening to the Empathetic Trainer podcast. Today's guest is going to be a great one. We are so excited to have Kari Bastyr with us today. Kari Bastyr is a dog behaviorist and canine nutritionist. She's the founder of Wagon Train Animal Behavior Specialist. Her training methods take into account the whole dog, including emotions, behavior, and their effects on the gut-brain axis. Kari doesn't believe dogs are bad. She just thinks they're having a hard time. That, that's the
That's
whole
right.
conversation right there, isn't it? Hey, Kari, so glad to have you with us.
Hi. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Well, this is great. Boy, I already have so many questions right off the bat. I'm just trying to understand. So, first, though, let's talk a little bit about your background, kind of who you are, how you got into, were you born with it? Like seems almost all of us were. Why dogs over anything else, or is there a whole nother set of animals you're crazy about too? Let's just kind of start with little Carrie. Let's figure that
Sure.
out.
Well, I wasn't really born into this. I didn't really have the itch when I was a kid. We had dogs, and my family are dog lovers. But I wanted to go into film, and
Hmm.
that didn't work out. I just realized it's way too expensive to go into film. So I switched to what most people probably switch to is psychology. And
That's right. I want to be in the film industry,
yes,
but I'll be a psychiatrist
yeah,
instead.
I'll just go into that. Um, so the program that I went to had a behavior analysis program in my undergrad at St. Cloud State. It's no longer the program's still there, but the track that I took, they had a rat lab, and I loved it. I loved working with the rats and doing the experiments, and I decided to go to go to grad school because they had a animal behavior grad program, and I ran the rat lab. I was the graduate assistant, and I just soaked it all in. And at the same time, I was working for as a dog trainer for a veterinarian, and
Hmm.
his best friend was the head of the veterinary animal behavior department at the University of Minnesota, R.K. Anderson.
Oh, I'm
And
familiar. Yep.
yes, he invented the gentle leader. And
Dr.
I learned
Anderson.
so
Yep.
much from him, and I just decided, wow, I really love this. Really, um, it speaks to me. Our Dr. Anderson was a very gentle dog trainer
And ahead of
and
his time, ahead of
ahead of
his
his
time.
time. Yeah. And so I continued teaching classes for this veterinarian, and I was lucky enough for Dr. Anderson to be my mentor, and the rest is history. So
Okay.
I started my own business and moved to Denver, and yeah, that's how it all happened.
And now you're back where?
In Minneapolis. I'm from
Okay.
Minneapolis.
Hmm.
And what I'm told is everyone moves back to Minneapolis. So I moved to Denver for 15 years and moved back after some health challenges. So I love it here. This is my
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who doesn't love the winters here? I'm in Wisconsin, of
Yeah,
course. Who doesn't love the winters? Why wouldn't we come back for
I
20 below,
know.
So,
Well, they're the same in Colorado, pretty much, just at higher altitude.
right. And it's very pretty there.
Yes.
Okay. Um, well, let's, we, some of my notes here. Sorry, some of my notes here. Lizzie, my producer, writes so beautifully for me. Let's talk about dog dominance and that theory debunked. So, dog dominance theory debunked. Let me go back just briefly. I've been working with animals with my animal actor agency since
Yeah.
'87, a long time. But I'm old enough to remember very dominant methods of dog training, and um,
Yes.
even witnessing a dog being hung up, on a choke
Hmm.
chain because it was aggressive to another dog, and they hung it up to choke off
Yeah.
its air. Which, as a young person, I knew that was abhorrent. But
Yes.
um, you don't have any power. You didn't think you had any power at that point. But I knew that isn't
Right.
the route I wanted to take. And
Yeah.
then being an animal actor trainer, of course, everything has to be the most fun games, the most whatever. So we don't have to play that ever. We didn't. But
Correct.
it's still sometimes dogs will come in for auditions, and you'll have owners that are, you can really read that they are, there will be marching, you know, and it's
Rest.
really
Yeah.
dominant, and it's so disheartening because the dogs are trying so hard. Like you said, they're having a hard time.
Hmm.
So maybe we could talk about that. One of the points is dogs are definitely not out for world domination. You know,
Oh, yes.
cats are. Let's start. Cats are definitely out for world domination,
Yes.
but
I
not
love cats.
dogs.
I train cats too. They're a little bit more difficult, but I do work with cats. But
Hmm.
yeah, dogs don't want to be, they're not out for world domination, and I think that's a big part of where the dominance trainers think that they have to be dominant over their dog or over a dog that they're training. Um, but dominant dogs are actually very calm and stable. My last dog, Paisley, she was really dominant, and she was
Hmm.
just chill. She didn't have to really, tell dogs anything. Once in a while, a little snark, but she was really chill, and puppies knew that she was in charge, and other dogs knew just by her presence. And I never ever had to use a heavy hand for her, nor have I ever for any other dog. But
Hmm.
when people call me and they say, "Oh, my dog is really dominant and is doing this," I automatically know, okay, their dog's having a hard time. They're reactive. Maybe they bit someone. They think that's dominant behavior, but it's
Right.
not. It's actually the opposite. It's insecure. The dog's insecure, fearful, anxious, just having a hard time and trying to communicate its needs, but it's being read as dominant. And
Yes.
dominance in dog training is still extremely pervasive. It's very prevalent on social media. It's, prevalent, just you can't, you can Google dog training, and a lot of the trainers are dominance based trainers, just
Hmm.
really
So let's explain
trying.
for our audience that may not know what we mean by dominance-based training versus other types.
Well, it started back in the 1970s. A animal researcher, Dr. David Meck,
Hmm.
hypothesized after watching captive wolves that there was this dominance hierarchy, and um, it was a really big study,
I had
but
the
it
book.
wasn't in a and yes, and
I have his book.
it's a whole thing. Um, but it was in captive wolves. It wasn't in wild wolves.
Hmm.
And, his hypothesis at the time was that dogs and families were like that. And I don't know, I think a couple weeks or a couple months later, he, came out and said, whoopsies,
Hmm.
that's not true. And this was in the early 70s, I think 1973.
Yeah.
And at that time, too, we know this from Dr. Ian Dunbar, that
Who
a
was a
lot of the
podcast guest. So we
yes,
got to talk
yeah,
to him.
yeah,
Pretty great.
yeah. So he, but before Dr. Ian Dunbar kind of came on the scene, people didn't think that puppies could be trained earlier than 6 months,
Hmm.
and Dr. Dunbar, totally blew that out of the water. Now we know better, right? But this dominance in dog training has been around for a really long time, and um, Dr. Meck he um, came out and said, nope, it's not true. And it's still really pervasive,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, it happened in the horse world too. A very similar pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dominance with horses has been going on forever,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
um, it's when people talk about the horses, some people will be like, well, you can't let him push you around, or you can't let him dominate you. Now, of course, there's
Yes,
safety issues. He's 1,000 pounds, but
correct.
a more recent, hopefully growing trend is the horse. Everything he's doing, and Lockie Phillips talks about this, is communication, right? So everything
Correct.
the dog is telling you, the dominant
Mm-hmm.
dominant dog, in air quotes, is telling you something, right? So
Yes.
they've studied horses in the wild. I'm sorry, they've studied captive herds of horses, like horses that are boarding bar, right?
Right.
And they go like, there's a lead horse and he's in charge of everybody. This kind of like what David Meek's story, the wolf guys premise. There's dominance, da da da. Well, in horses in the wild, they found it to be completely different. There's not
Yeah,
always
just like
this
with
fight
wolves.
for leadership. It's not the stallion always. It's a fluid. it's a fluid rolling pattern with
Yep.
horses, because horses not captive, but horses living in a
Yeah.
man-made environment are going to react differently because there's fighting over resources, fighting over water.
Yeah. And they're
There's
not family.
and then
Yeah.
they're not in the family groups, and then they can only graze so much. But horses in the wild have all the acreage to move around and not get in each other's space if they don't want to. So I mean, it's a whole different thing.
Correct.
And there's an awakening in the horse world about understanding and communicating with horses a whole lot better. Warwick Schiller, Lockie Phillips, Carrie Lake,
Yes.
several of our podcast guests are really getting the word out. And I hope that we can continue to get the word out about dogs too, which is why I love that expression. How you don't think dogs are bad. It just thinks they're
No.
having a hard time. You're not putting human attributes on a dog's behavior when he's acting like a dog.
Yes. And trying to communicate his or her needs. And they're
Yes.
so misinterpreted. And that's where the dominance comes out, is we put anthropomorphize, and we put our human emotions on the dog and try and make them submissive, because we're the all, powerful, when all they're trying to do is say, hey, I'm a little scared right now. Can you help me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then one of the other points is the majority of people who have dogs use the terms dominance or dominant incorrectly. And that's kind of what you're speaking to just now.
Correct. Yeah. Dominance is, like I said, calm, stable brain chemicals or neurotransmitters, because the neurotransmitters are produced in the gut too. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yes.
And then being dominant is usually, for dogs, when that's interpreted as a dog who's dominant, it's usually a scared, insecure, fearful, anxious dog.
Isn't this interesting? I just said they're not like people, but they are mammals, and we're mammals.
Yeah.
If we think about a bully,
beings.
someone who we consider a bully, he's trying to be dominant, but a lot of times, if you look deeper, the paradigm is not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you, right?
Exactly.
So then, the paradigm, like, why are you being a bully? What is this insecure? What is this not feeling good about? Because the leaders we are drawn to naturally are, relaxed, calm people that
stable.
regulate themselves well, and then inspire other people to want to be with them. And so a dog that is calm, like you're saying, would be so in theory, he's sort of like a pack leader, or we're not even talking pack leader things anymore. Like, things are different.
Things are different. We're not really talking, we don't use like pack leader, leader in general, because they do imply kind of the dominant space.
Okay, so then tell me about a family dog. Just explain a family dog. Like, how does this work? Okay, so I'll give you an example in my own life, just because I've got border collies and a collie mix, right? And my oldest one, who's 15 now, when we first got him, my oldest child was 12 or 13, so he didn't have a lot of exposure to babies, okay? Because my boys are already older. And so then when I started having grandchildren, and these are house dogs, they're with us, he was underneath a couch that he can get under, like a little den. That's where he liked to hang out, right? Yeah. And the baby was crawling at this point. Baby crawled towards that spot, and he went like, no, my spot, because you're not a big enough human, or whatever the reason, and he didn't do anything except for a warning, like, rough, mine. And I didn't get after him except to say, oh, we're putting you in an untenable position. This is not fair to you, dear dog. When baby's loose, we'll have you be in your safe place, because they're crate trained, and baby can't bother you there, Good. And so to be fair to that dog, right? But so he's not a dominant dog. He's not trying to push that baby around, right? He's just like anxious. What is this thing coming towards me that I'm just not right? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah. He was trying to express his needs, and he was uncomfortable and scared, probably, and because the baby's at the same level, and he just was saying, back off, like, get out of my space. And it's a very appropriate warning, but a lot of people interpret that as the dog trying to be dominant.
Okay. All right. And then the last comment on that part was, most people think dominance means aggression, but let's take that apart.
Well, just like I was saying before, when I get calls that my dog is being dominant or I have such a dominant dog, I automatically know, well, that dog's not dominant. That dog's fearful or insecure or
Mm-hmm.
anxious. But those behaviors are attributed, what we think, those people think, like my clients, because of this whole dominance theory, that that's what dominance looks like.
Okay.
And when I
So
explain that's not it, then they want to learn,
okay. So
thankfully.
then what is it? Is it reactivity then, or what? So I'll be like, okay, I understand. So they have a dog and he's doing whatever, and I'll go like, okay, then what is it? But what are we going to be? Is there each dog different, of course, or like what's the most common thing when a dog is when we misinterpret as trying to be dominant? What is he really trying to tell us, and then how can we best help him?
Well, it's an emotion or series of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times dogs give us signals way, way before the bark, snap, snarl, bite.
Yeah, just like
They're called
horses. Yep.
calming signals.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, don't know how to interpret them. Tongue flicking, lip licking, yawning's a big one. Shaking off, doing a little head turn.
Mm-hmm.
That dog's trying to communicate, I'm uncomfortable right now. Maybe you can dial it down a notch. But then when those calming signals aren't interpreted correctly or just totally, glossed over, then it might become the growl or the snarl, and
Oh
then
yeah.
unfortunately some dogs then have to resort to the snark or the nip or the bite.
Mm-hmm.
And that dog is just having a hard time. The dog is fearful, scared, cornered, has some anxiety issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's just we want to try and support those puppies and dogs to build their confidence, to decrease that underlying anxiety, to build more positive associations. And the biggest thing, and this is what you said that you did with your dog and your grandchildren, is you always have to set your dog up to succeed. It's the
Exactly.
best way for them to be successful, and not put them in situations, where you have them on the end of a leash and, they're barking and lunging and going crazy. That's a really stressed dog.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have to make sure that we're supporting them and teaching them to feel safe. And so working on leash reactivity or, fear of people or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's like taking 1,000 steps back and starting from the beginning at the root cause, which is typically anxiety and fear.
Mm-hmm. Same exact thing with horses, because the best thing we
Yeah,
can do with our
they're very
horses is to
similar.
have them feel safe, right? And the
Yes,
reason they're reacting is they do not trust us to keep them safe.
correct.
We're
Same
not
for
keeping them
dogs.
safe, and so it sounds very similar.
Yes.
So when we were getting back going after COVID, because for when COVID came, of course, all of our work as animal actors shut down, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, people got a lot of puppies during COVID. And
Yes.
now we have these 2-year-old dogs who
3-year-olds. Yeah.
just could not be socialized in the typical way at the time.
Yes.
They just um, so my question, so they come in for an audition and they're clearly, even though we've stated, hey, your dog, if he's shy, if he's anxious, he may not like this, but as they come in and they exhibit all that, I kind of feel bad for them because they kind of had
Yeah.
kind of had a rough start. So
Yeah.
is there hope? I mean, if these people, their dogs are shy, their dogs haven't been socialized, whatever, do dogs get, this is, I mean, I probably know, but our audience might not. Are dogs ever too far gone, too old, can't be helped? Or can every dog with time and patience and the right, help? I mean, can we help?
Oh gosh, that's such a hard question. I mean, the
Individual,
short
they're all
answer is
individuals, but
yes, yes. The short answer is yes. Um, it just depends, I mean, the biggest thing is if you have a dog, and this is totally individual, but when you have a
mm-hmm,
dog who has, a multiple bite history or, just I mean, that's probably the only thing I can think of where, management is really the best option. Changing emotions is, really kind of the key, just depending on the dog, of course. But,
oh yeah,
the COVID puppies, if they weren't exposed to, certain environments or certain people and they have a fear, there's a lot we can do to help counter condition those behaviors and work on desensitization and decreasing that anxiety. Sometimes it's genetic. I work with a lot of genetically fearful dogs, but when we, focus on, like I said, counter conditioning or, improving the microbiome to increase the neurotransmitter production, there is a lot of hope. It's not,
That's great.
especially in a young dog like 3 years old, but I've worked with much older dogs, rescue
Okay.
dogs who are 10, 11, 12, where we can do a lot for them.
Hmm. And
Maybe they're
then we
not
can
gonna.
also protect our dogs. Like this is not a normal situation, but for our animal actors, right? If we get dogs into the
Yep.
audition and we're testing with strobes and strobes pop, so to some dogs it's the
Yeah.
sky exploding. Right? They're really
Yep.
smart. They go, this guy. If the dog doesn't, like we start out way away from the lights, but if we get a reaction that is
Yep.
fearful, we just go, no, not his thing. It's okay.
Yep.
Because there's no reason that we have to make
Right.
him do this. You know what I mean? Like he has a happy life. This is a human thing. Doesn't need to do it.
Yeah.
But the living in society part, that part we want to help the dog with. But it's like if your dog doesn't
Absolutely.
like jumping in, like doing dock diving or jumping into the water, you're not going to make him do it.
Correct.
Or at least you shouldn't make him
Yeah.
do it. But if you need
Set
him
them
to
up
be
to
able to
succeed.
walk safely at a safe distance away from people down the street, this would be
Yeah.
a good thing to help him with. So that
Yes.
he can be in the world. Doesn't have to be next to anybody, or certainly doesn't have to interact with other dogs. But
Yep.
you don't want that whole thing to be so stressful for him. So this is how things can help, which
Yeah.
is a good segue. So let's talk about this gut brain axis. I've only briefly started to learn about how there's like two brains. Like we have the stomach. Humans too. We have a brain in our stomach and our gut somehow, and
Yep.
then our brain, and these things interact. And so that's a whole
Yes.
new world I'm learning a little bit about. Hadn't thought about applying it to the dogs, and of course any mammal or however that works. So,
Hmm.
gosh, I know nothing. Just start us, just like the rest of my audience, perhaps. Please fill us in on what this all means and how we can help. This is fascinating.
Yes. So, the whole gut brain axis, gut microbiome thing came about when I had an imbalanced microbiome when I was diagnosed with celiac disease.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to heal my gut, and obviously I went gluten free, but there were so many other aspects to it. And then I just became a gut nerd and started
Gut nerd.
started reading a lot of research, and this was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's a lot more now. But back then there was, research starting to be done on dogs' microbiome. And probably the first thing that I learned is that puppies inherit the mother's microbiome just like human babies do.
Okay.
And so if a puppy's born to a mom who's stressed or has, dysbiosis, which is leaky gut or just an imbalanced microbiome, that puppy's going to inherit it. So
Okay.
right off
Before
the bat,
we go on microbiome, please explain
the
for us in the
microbiome,
audience microbiome. Yeah.
that's
Just so we
just
know what we're
the
talking.
makeup of the um the gut.
So like an
The
ecosystem. Is it an ecosystem in a
Yes.
sense? Okay.
And there's good and bad gut bacteria. When you have an imbalance, typically the bad gut bacteria takes over the good gut bacteria. And sometimes it causes what's called dysbiosis or leaky
Mm-hmm.
gut syndrome.
Okay.
And that's where the small intestine is damaged and has the short answer is get through just this imbalanced microbiome and stress and bad diet and environment develops these little tiny holes in the gut, and
Okay.
that's the leaky part. And then
Okay.
toxins leak out into the bloodstream, and it causes a lot of brain fog, cognitive dysfunction, anxiety. It's the same for
Wow.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's why I became this gut nerd, because those are my symptoms.
Wow. That must have been scary at
Yes.
the time.
Yes, it was. And then my dog was diagnosed with some health issues, and I went down the dog gut rabbit hole even further and
Mm-hmm.
realized that, one of her issues at the time was also leaky gut syndrome or dysbiosis. And so
Which
I
dog are
worked
we talking
really
about?
Paisley. The one that I was talking
Okay.
about before with she was a really dominant dog, and she's the
Okay.
best dog I've ever had.
And Paisley's what kind of
She's
dog?
chocolate lab,
Okay.
and she was a rescue. I got her at about 9 weeks. She's from the Dumb Friends League in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, she was 8, um, and I did a total diet change. I did supplements. I did like foot baths and a bunch of stuff that I won't go into. But I ended up, really working on her gut health to build her
Mm-hmm.
immune system also, because
Okay.
she had a blood disorder.
Mm.
Um, and I realized through more research and just, kind of going down even more the rabbit hole, that diet plays a big part in anxiety.
Yes.
And at the same time, this is huge, I realized, read, researched, whatever, that 90% of serotonin and other neurotransmitters are produced in the gut. Only
Really?
10% are produced in the brain.
Wow.
So think about it. It's same for people.
Huh.
90% of serotonin is the neurotransmitter that regulates mood. So if you don't have enough serotonin, dopamine, GABA, norepinephrine, you're going to be anxious. And this
Okay.
is where the light bulb really started to go on with me. And I started a nutrition certification. I started working on gut health with clients whose dogs have, pervasive anxiety, these rescue dogs that were so anxious. And
Sure.
I started seeing huge behavior change.
Oh, no, that's fascinating. So these dogs have
Yes.
trauma, and they
Yes.
carry their trauma because
Some of
mammals
them
carry
do. Yep.
trauma the same, pretty much.
Yep.
There must be parallels in the human world. So I'm finding all of
Yes.
this extremely fascinating. So, what changes had to happen in a dog's diet that you could see the manifestation of less anxiety or, the more serotonin being produced? What would have to have happened?
Well, the
That's
first thing is that we
fascinating.
want to we want to focus on healing the gut, and there's several ways to start that process, and it does take a while, or it can take a while. It took me
Hmm.
almost a year to heal my gut, and probably the same for Paisley with little changes. Basically, well, not basically, but because it's not basically, the first thing that I would look at is the food, because food affects mood. I'm not
Hmm.
wearing my sweatshirt today, but I have a sweatshirt that
Food
says that.
affects mood. Oh, yeah.
And
Well, I
yeah, same for people. And
exactly.
just trying to focus on doing a more minimally processed diet and adding in fresh foods, which in, the dog world is like, it's a paradigm shift, right?
Well,
And
right, but it's current. It's recent though. If dog history, if you look at the long, centuries of us being
yes,
together with dogs, um, processed dog food is a relatively new
it
thing,
is.
in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Chuck Wagon
Evolutionarily
commercial.
speaking.
The Chuck Wagon commercial was like canned dog food. The Chuck Wagon would run underneath the covers. It had horses in it, which is why I remember it.
Yes.
But
Yep.
I don't know how long, and I'm not going to trash the whole industry, but because
Correct.
there must be something out there. But it's a rel. I mean, is it 100 years old, 50 years old? Compared to the dogs being with people, eating what people ate, right? If
Yes.
you had all your leftovers, whatever, you're
About a
eating
hundred
something
years.
like
Yeah.
my dogs eat every. Someone would be like, you shouldn't give him table scraps, and I'm like, but he loves broccoli,
Yeah. Oh
so
my gosh.
why
Broccoli
wouldn't I
is
give him a
so
carrot?
great.
I mean, so
Yep.
things that I'm eating that they can eat, I mean, we share. Obviously, we're careful what they can't have, but or too much.
Correct.
But the
Yes.
point is like they're very varied diet if they get a chance. Yes, a dog will choose a variation if he's got access.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. The one caveat though is when I'm dealing with a highly anxious dog, they typically don't have an appetite. So
Oh, that
they
always
won't eat
shocks me.
anything.
We know that's a sign of anxiety at an audition if they won't take
Mhm.
a treat. That's the first.
Yep.
If they haven't reacted in a different way, the fact that they don't want to take a treat, which is
Mhm.
like, it could be some string cheese or something,
They're,
just lamb lung,
oh
something
wow,
really,
yeah.
something really good. I'm like, oh,
Yes.
okay, he's not happy. No,
They
owner
won't
will go,
take,
no, he's
yeah.
fine, he's fine. And I go, no, I'm
Oh,
sorry, it's not his
yeah.
thing. Thank you. Maybe when we
Correct.
do video and there's no strobes, but I mean, I right away, that's if I haven't already seen it, if he hasn't shown me another way, first way. Because think about it, if you and
That's
I
it.
are anxious,
Yeah.
we get that sinking feeling in our gut. We
Yeah.
couldn't eat,
It's
we'd
fight or
throw up.
flight. We're
Yeah.
not meant to eat when we're in fight or flight.
Right. So
And a lot
something's,
of
yeah.
a lot of rescue dogs I work with, or fearful dogs, won't eat breakfast. They'll only eat dinner, or they'll eat really late at night, and they literally fast themselves to try and
Huh.
heal their guts, because that's what wolves and wild dogs do. When they're sick, they don't eat, and or when
Okay.
their tummy hurts. But that's why we feel butterflies in our tummy too. It's because
Yeah.
the microbiome.
It's going, hey,
Um,
warning.
yes, yes, we're anxious.
Wow.
We're anxious.
Wow. Fascinating.
Um, Yeah, so minimally processed diet, and there's plenty of minimally processed, complete and balanced, great diets out there. But
Hmm.
the one thing that I have people start doing is just trying to add in more fresh foods, a little bit at a time. Veggies and fruits are typically the easiest, just leftover,
Hmm.
or even not leftover, just like smash a couple blueberries, or at my house it's cucumbers. Oh my gosh, Birdie loves cucumbers, and they're like crack. um a little fresh chicken breast,
Hmm.
no seasoning, just boil it, or I put mine
Hmm.
in the instant pot. Just start adding in some fresh food to increase the good gut bacteria.
Hmm.
That's a great first way. And so I have people start doing that, and just depending on which direction they want to go with the diet, I can help them with that. I just
Well,
finished my second nutrition certification, so
hmm.
that's kind of my wheelhouse now. But
Well, that's cool.
just adding in we call them toppers in the industry.
Hmm.
um, and just working on trying to incorporate more of those fresh foods, and that
Okay.
can really help.
Well, I have a question then. You know how
Yeah.
like yogurt has live bacteria that are
Mhm.
good yogurts have stuff that's good for us. Is that same principle apply to dogs as long as it's not too much dairy or
You know,
like
I will do yogurt. I'll do kefir instead.
hmm.
But I have a lot of people who, they get a lick mat and they want to know what to put on it, and I say, "Do you have yogurt in your fridge?" And like, okay, just put a tablespoon on there. Of course, I don't want it like high in sugar or anything like that, but
Hmm.
Greek yogurt, kefir, I use that. I recommend that a lot.
So that
Goat's
can
milk
help.
is an amazing probiotic.
Oh, yeah,
So
I
there's a
imagine.
lot of options.
So she held up a lick mat for those that aren't watching the video, and the
Oh,
lick mat
yep.
is usually some kind of dog safe rubber, plastic, whatever that has little bumps and things like that. The texture so
Yep.
that the food can be spread around. And it takes them a little time instead of gulping something down, and it's stimulating. It's interesting to the
Yes,
dog.
it's
So
calming.
calming.
And I
Yeah.
use it to calm and create positive associations, and just to help a dog have some mental exercise.
Hmm.
So that's a side note, but
Yeah. Just
licking on something like that is really good too. Stimulating the endorphins, and then enzymes for digestion. So
okay. So when we change the dog's diet, and it takes time, right? Because we have to build it,
yes.
but there must be behavioral parts of it too that go with it.
Oh
I mean,
yes.
right? There's stuff that as owners we can do to help our dogs. If we're like we've come to you, we've gotten an idea of what foods we're going to work with. What would be
Yes.
the next step?
Well, I certainly work a lot on building confidence and problem solving.
There you
That's a
go.
big thing. And decreasing whatever the cause of the anxiety. 'Cause sometimes it's genetic, sometimes it's environmental. So just decreasing stressors in the environment,
Hmm.
and then working on what we call counter conditioning. So that's an emotion conditioned emotional response that's classically conditioned already, like a fear of fire hydrants or garbage trucks or dogs.
For
That's a
children,
classically
yeah.
conditioned
Hmm.
response,
Hmm.
similar to horses, I would imagine. We want to work on counter conditioning that emotion with a new behavior and a new emotional association. And that's where a lot of the behavior change comes in. The gut part is big, because we have to try and improve the neurotransmitters to help with the
Hmm.
gut brain axis. The neurotransmitters talk through the gut, or talk from the gut to the brain, through the vagus nerve. And so when we have more neurotransmitters, you're going to have less anxiety. then we can actually really start the behavior modification process.
Right. And the vagus nerve, for those listening, is it's on horses and dogs and other mammals too. If you could just, it's a long, it's like a central railroad, isn't it? In a way. It runs down,
Yep. It's
I
part
don't
of the
know
central
biology,
nervous
but
system.
it runs down from our brain, through our, like near our spine. I'm trying to remember, like our spine or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because,
it's part of the central nervous system.
right. Because it helps us whether we're going to be in executive mode, like we're actually thinking, and we're not in fight or flight.
Correct.
And so it helps. But I never had learned much about the whole gut part of it, like that's talking. Of course, our whole body's talking; it's all integrated. But it's interesting. So
It's
people,
so
if you're feeling
fascinating.
anxious, go look at your nutrition. Talk to a nutritionist about that as you're a person.
Oh gosh. Oh, you're preaching now. Like I cannot tell you how much my life changed when I cut out gluten and dairy and sugar.
Well, let's
Not
talk
that everyone
about
else
that,
has to
because
do that, but
it was a pretty serious health crisis for you. Let's dwell into that a little bit. I'm hoping you're on the mend. But what was going on, and what made you realize that something was happening and you needed to, and you got help, hopefully. So what happened?
I had no idea, actually. I didn't even know I was sick, which happens a lot with celiac disease. I had to have eye surgery and I had blood work and I was super anemic. And that's one of the biggest symptoms of celiac disease. But I never had any GI issues or anything else. I had migraines really bad. That's now when I accidentally am exposed to gluten, that's my symptom. But yeah, that was 10 years ago. So I had an endoscopy and then I was diagnosed through biopsy, which is kind of the gold standard. But you can get blood work and stuff for celiac.
Okay.
There's over 300 symptoms of celiac disease, believe it or not.
So then you were able to find some relief, like just by changing your diet, I guess?
Well, I had to cut out gluten, obviously, and that was cold turkey. And I've learned a lot in the last 10 years. It was difficult at first. It's not as difficult now. I'm actually now pivoting a little bit with my business because I am now training a gluten detection service dog for myself. And
okay.
My mentor is the first gluten detection trainer, Don Choi from Willow Service Dogs.
Interesting.
And so now I'm going to be training gluten detection dogs too. And Birdie checks my food and shampoo and stuff like that.
So gluten detection, because dogs have the incredible, they get the cells in their nose, but the gazillion cells in their nose that's why they can do the detection for drugs and anything else.
The noses
dogs
are
can
much
even
more sensitive.
Learning to detect cancer and amazing, amazing things. And we have several stories about how dogs that we were working with knew the owner had something wrong, had cancer before the owner knew it. The dog was telling us. I could recognize on set that something was wrong, but I didn't know what was wrong.
Oh, wow.
That blew my mind that the dog knew, because the guy went home after that shoot, and like within a week he said, "I've got pancreatic cancer." I didn't even know I had it.
Oh my gosh.
But the dog wouldn't leave him. The dog would normally work independently, and the dog just went, "Nope, I'm anxious. I'm not thinking about this job. I'm thinking about my guy." And we couldn't figure out why he was so not himself. The dog was not himself, and he's screaming, something's really wrong with my guy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And sadly, within 6 months to a year, the fellow passed. But dogs do our early warning system. If we allow it, if we're listening, they're early warning system. And on a side note, horses have the same amount of cells. Horses can sniff as well as dogs. And I just learned that this summer. Horses could be trained to do, horses could be shaped to do scent detection too. I had no
idea. Okay, I'm going to have to look more into that. Not that I need a horse or anything. But...
No, I know, but isn't that interesting that animals can teach us so much? So gluten detection, they're going to be looking for some compound, some way that the dog can sniff it out.
The protein, gluten protein, and barley and rye also.
Okay, so he gets trained to exhibit an alert with so that you could be just going through looking at products and whatever it is, and he could go like, "Oh, it doesn't say it, but it's in there," or something, right? I mean, he can warn you ahead of time.
If she detects gluten, she freezes, and if it's safe, she noses my leg.
Wow. Who knew this? That's amazing. Can we have one that says things like, I'm being a jokey here, but like, no, that chocolate ice cream, ice cream is not good for you, even though you don't have like, no, don't buy that.
Yeah, well, she'll tell me. I present it to her, a package or a plate or a bowl, some sort of container, and
Mhm.
she'll sniff it and she'll let me know.
How does a
Yeah,
dog
it's
not just go like, "Oh,
remarkable.
we'll just eat it, thank you."
Well,
Like, if
training.
I guess leave it. It's a good
She's
leave it
never,
command.
well, maybe she tried to eat once, but then, of course I worked on it. When I first
Yeah.
presented the plates, she she was like, "What?
Yeah,
I
because I
get to
give
eat
my
off the
dog a
plate?"
plate, he's like, "That's mine."
Well, there's so many, many, many months of training that go up
Mhm.
to before we start working with plates. But yeah, now she
Yeah.
just sniffs and tells me.
That's
So
really cool. I just had
yeah,
never heard of that, and what an
it's really
amazing
cool.
dog Birdie is, just
Yes,
on the
she
whole,
is.
you
She's
know.
pretty
So,
cool.
how old is she right now?
She's 3.
3. Just a baby. Okay.
Yeah.
And Birdie is what
Yeah.
kind of dog?
Chocolate lab also.
Another chocolate lab. Okay. Great dogs.
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Let me see if I've got covering all the things I wanted to talk about. It says talk about her chocolate lab Birdie. That's one of my notes here.
Oh,
So good. Okay, and then
I don't know if you remember this. Well, you probably don't, but you
mhm.
photographed Birdie before for Target
Okay, I believe you because
a couple years ago.
when she was
She was a
like a
baby.
puppy, or
Yeah, she was she was like a year. So it was like 2 years ago. Search Birdie
okay.
in your archives and you'll see her.
Oh, and she was an audition, or it was a shoot
An
shoot.
audition. And Tinker is one of my Tinker's mom is one of my best friends. Tinker the yellow lab from Target.
Oh, we love
Yeah.
Tink. Yeah, I always call
Yes.
her
Oh
Tink.
yeah.
That's why. Yeah,
Tink.
Tink.
Yes, Tink.
Okay,
Tinky
no,
Tink.
yeah, she's a deer. She's with the dog and
Yes,
the
I
owner. She's just a
love
deer.
Tink.
Well, did you ever get Birdie's pictures? I'll make sure you have them if you didn't get them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, they're beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
She's never
very.
been chosen by Target though, but that's
I
okay.
actually no. To be fair, now they haven't been using the chocolate labs that much,
Mm.
but I did put her up because does she have a green
Oh
collar
good.
on? I think I did put her up
Yeah.
for something just recently. We'll get
Woo.
Birdie in. Dang it, we'll get Birdie in.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
because yeah, we do a lot of work for them. Okay, let's. It says that you lost Paisley, which I'm sad to hear, in
Yes, thank
2021. So,
you.
how old
Yeah.
was Paisley then?
She had just turned 11.
Okay, so
So,
the normal age roughly for a lab, but always hard.
yeah, I mean, she got osteosarcoma because her immune system was just so shot from her blood
Mm-hmm.
disease. I believe she could have lived a little bit longer. Because if she had not developed the blood disease. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she was an amazing dog, the best dog I've ever had, and I'll never have another one like her.
I understand. I
Um,
feel that way about a particular horse. I get it. You know.
yeah, she was amazing. She was my demo dog, and she trained so many puppies because I do puppy
Mm.
board and train
Oh, okay,
hundreds
good.
of puppies,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, she was awesome.
It takes a special dog to
Her
tolerate
picture.
all
There
those
she
naughty
is. You can
puppies.
see her. She's right there.
Oh,
That's
dear
Paisley.
girl. What a
Yeah,
dear girl. So you have just one dog right now, or a couple?
I do. Yeah. I'm thinking about getting another chocolate lab puppy to train as a gluten detection dog probably next year.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I've been wanting to do this for a while. And I'm just gonna do it. I don't know why I'm not, but I want to
Yeah.
adopt a senior dog that's
Mm-hmm.
in a shelter that's been like their owner died or something, or a hospice dog from a rescue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think it would be really rewarding. So I'm gonna do it soon, very soon.
Yeah, I have senior mares horses that I got from Forever Morgans out of New York
Oh
and
yeah.
Pennsylvania, but they gosh, I've had them 10, 12 years now, and
Oh
we
wow.
don't ride them. They're just
Yeah,
retired old Morgans. I have Morgans,
I love it.
and they're just wonderful grandma
So
horses.
special.
That's my they're probably my last ones because we did it for about 20 years. And now I have
Yeah.
3 young horses that I purposely my first purpose bought Morgans. Um, but I love my old girls. They're just this
Yep.
the
I
best.
love seniors. Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Uh, all right, we're back, and this is the part of the show where we do the questions. I sent you the intake
oh
form,
yes.
there was a series of questions that we totally stole this concept, this idea of asking these questions from Warwick Schiller, who is a horse person trainer
Yeah.
that is helping all the horse people become more attuned to their horses. And he stole the idea from Tim Ferriss's book, Tribe of Mentors. So
Oh,
these questions
yeah.
come from
I
Tim
like Tim
Ferriss.
Ferriss. Yeah.
So we have to give credit where credit's due. These are
Yep.
not mine. So I sent you 20 questions and you picked out 5 of them. Okay. So the
Okay.
questions that I'm going to ask you about is the first one was, what book would you recommend and why?
All right. This is easy. I took it off my shelf. Oh,
Okay,
shoot.
so
You
she's
can't
holding
see it.
up a
It's
book
backward.
for. No, it's good for
The
us. It's
Forever
good.
Dog.
The Forever Dog by Rodney Habib and Dr. Karen Shaw Becker. So tell us about the Forever Dog.
Well, it's a book about how the things that you can do to help your dog live forever.
Oh,
And it's a
everyone's
wonderful
going to
book.
want that.
Yes. These 2 authors are, well, Dr. Becker's been one of my idols for many years. And Rodney Habib, I actually just saw him in October at the Feedreal Institute conference, and he's just a force. He started Planet Paws on Facebook years ago, and it's the most followed Facebook page. There's millions and millions of followers. And they have studied the dogs in the world that have lived the longest and why they lived the longest. And so they pulled tons of research, and there's so much research in this book, and just kind of outlined how to help your dog live forever. So it's a fascinating
I'm curious,
book.
is one of the things for helping a dog live forever? I'm going to get the book.
Okay,
that
good.
sounds great. I'm going to try and get him on my podcast because now I want to talk.
Oh, you
to them.
should. Yeah.
Totally want to talk to
They
them.
have a new book coming out in 2 weeks. It's called The Forever Dog Life.
Yeah, well, then this is good timing.
Yes.
I'm curious because someone has told me this. I have a 15-year-old border collie, right? I've had him since he was a pup. Now, I live on a farm, so he's been able his entire life, because we've lived here, he's able to free run, like he's supervised. We don't let our dogs out. We're out with them. Okay.
Right,
but
right.
we exercise, we go for walks, and he also works, he likes to work the sheep, and, he does his dog job. Okay.
I love it.
He doesn't have to be on a leash, ever, unless we're in town. Right.
Well, he's 15.
So, but I mean, he doesn't have to even, he doesn't run away. Right. So we play Frisbee, and he's got my 2 other dogs. So they have this happy, chase game, and they do all this stuff. I was told, because there's a lot of border collies that live in town or do other dog sports that kind of maybe not last that long, or they have serious, like they break down their, tear an ACL, or, things can happen. Right. I'm told that because he's had free exercise, like this, and on a daily basis, his whole life of this time to run and play and run and play and run and play, that physically
Very
fit.
important.
He's physically fit, and he's never had any health issues. Now he's 15, so he has the selective deafness, like, I don't need to hear you, so I don't need to come in. But, I'm like, oh, thank you. Right. I mean, what a thrill that he's lived this long.
Yes,
And my brain goes, I hope you just die in your sleep, because you don't want to go through that process.
Right.
But is that part of it? Is part of living forever?
Oh, absolutely.
Being able to exercise in an appropriate way.
Yep. Exercise is one of the main things that's important for dogs. There's diet, there's environment, exercise for sure. There's some other things too, but absolutely. And I have no doubt that that's why he's lived as long as he has.
I'm happy that he's had you're lucky if you're a dog here, because, man, for the occasional modeling job where you get lots of treats, there's not much work. You just get to have this best. He's right over here. He's just right there under my feet, because that's his job.
Also been exposed to a lot of, I want to say, microbes or
on a farm. Yes.
Dirt and
poop.
Manure,
they'll eat poop if you let them, horse poop and things like that.
So he has a really balanced microbiome, I would imagine.
Oh, see, now I never put that together. That is interesting. Whereas city dog, unless they find some rabbit poop or something, they're not gonna, you're not gonna let them have that. You're gonna be like, don't eat that.
Dirt's not bad. I mean, obviously they can't.
Well, I think that's why my husband and I are, knock on wood strong, is because, of the dirt that we live with. They mentioned, like, when polio came around, when polio came so badly in the 1950s and things like that, when polio was a terrible scourge before the vaccinations. They had changed from the early 1900s, 1920s, I can't exactly, to become more sanitary, which is a good thing, right? But then,
Yeah.
and then horses became less involved in humans' lives, especially in cities.
Correct. Oh,
So
yeah.
people didn't have access. There weren't the germs of horse manure and farm
Yep.
animals to help build up immune systems, so that when
Mhm.
polio came, it was so bad, whatever. And I just thought, wow, everyone needs horses in their life.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with that. We need to eat more dirt and have farm animals.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the immune system is in the gut, and that's where, that's why how the microbiome comes into play. It's all related. It's so
This is
fascinating.
Yeah, definitely we're going to have to come back and circle back on some of
Okay.
these subjects sometime, because this is cool. All right, the next message, or sorry,
Oh, I
next
forgot we're on the
question.
questions.
Yeah, that's all right. We could go on because it's so cool. If you could send a message to the world, what would that be? And do you have a favorite quote, or why?
Yes, I have had a favorite quote for many, many years, probably 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not that long, but I saw it one day and I thought, oh my gosh, that's how I live my life. And so you're not gonna be able to
Mm.
read this, but I have a magnet on my fridge and it says,
Uh,
leap and the net will appear.
oh, faith. And, just that it's going to be all right. Leap and the
Yep.
net will appear.
And that's just how I've lived my life. And, if you're just my message would be, if you want to do it, just do it, leap,
Mm-hmm.
and the net will appear,
Yeah.
and that's kind of an all encompassing
It's pretty
thought,
broad,
but
and so people can interpret it the way they like.
yeah.
I'm a person of faith, so I kind of go like, all right, I'm covered, but
Oh yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really great way I have kind of like faith, not fear, so that's kind of
Yeah.
a paradigm on that, or a thing on that too. That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great. I always look at, I joke about it, look at risk, or look at things like, hey, two questions. Will it hurt someone? Because I never want to hurt anybody. Like if
Oh
I'm going to
yeah.
try and do
Yeah.
something, will it hurt someone? I don't want to hurt my, and the other thing, is it illegal? Because I just don't want to
Oh
do things that
yes.
cause trouble. But if it's
Yep.
not, if you can answer those two questions, no, why not? The same thing with
Exactly. Let's
creating
do
a
it.
podcast, or starting a business, or
Yeah.
making a new friendship, or getting the puppy. Why
Getting a
not?
puppy. Yeah. Becoming a gluten detection dog trainer. I never thought was going to happen.
Right, right.
Why not?
Oh, I bet that could parallel to people with allergies then too, like deadly
Oh
allergies,
yeah. Oh yeah,
So,
there's a lot of people in our program that are training dogs for like peanuts and
mhm.
dairy, soy.
Oh yeah,
So
no,
basically
a
allergen
dog I just
detection.
used yesterday, when I was working in Milwaukee. A dog we used yesterday is little Jack Russell, and her owner has to carry EpiPen for
Yep.
bee stings and things like that.
Yep, I do too.
She's training the dog to alert her to a possible allergic problem. Like cantaloupe just set it off, or something that she wasn't aware that she even had
Oh,
these issues.
okay. Yep.
And
Yeah.
so
The
she's
change in
alerting the
body chemistry,
yeah, exactly. And I was just like,
anaphylaxis.
yes, I was like, wow.
It's
Now
so
she's not only your
fascinating.
best friend, this little dog, but she could save your life.
Exactly. I know.
Isn't
It's
that
really
mind
cool.
blowing? You
Yeah,
know? And I think if we could shape cats, they'd probably do it too. They just don't care, So
that's right.
no, I'm not trashing the cats. I love my cats.
Yeah, no, I love cats too. Cats are really trainable.
Oh,
I love
well,
working
that's what
with
I
cats.
do. That's my living, is my cats are models, and they have the best
There you
cat
go.
life. But
Yeah,
yeah, so no, but there's no dominance.
I
So
love
that was the
cats.
early lesson right
No,
there. There's no
yeah,
dominance in cat
they do what
training.
they want.
Yeah, and that's really smart of them. Good on. We should be more like cats. Like, is it in my best interest? Okay. No, I love them. All right, sorry, I digressed. But
It's
that's a
okay.
wonderful quote. I love that. All right, the next question: what is the most valuable thing that you put your time into that has changed the course of your life?
This, not podcast, but dogs.
No.
Like, um, getting the message out that dogs are just having a hard time. That's
Hmm.
that's my message.
Well, I
And
think you're
that's
doing a great service.
oh, thank you.
That's great. All right, what accomplishments? Sorry, what accomplishment are you most proud of, and why?
My business.
Good,
It's
because it's
it's
helping.
it's a
It's
constant
helping.
hustle, but it's my baby. I don't have kids, so wagon train's my kid.
Yep,
It's
that's
my greatest accomplishment. It's my legacy.
But what a service-based business. I mean, you're
Hmm.
not selling a trinket, you're actually helping people.
Right.
It's a really,
Uh-huh.
and dogs. So,
I have the
it's a
best job.
win-win. I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree. That's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, what is the worst advice given in your profession, or bad idea, that you hear of in your field of expertise?
Well, I think we already covered this one,
We
but
did a little bit,
it's
yeah.
the dominance part. But when I read this question, I thought the one thing that stuck out in my mind, and it wasn't really advice, it's just something that I hear all the time, is my dog is stubborn. And I
Same with
that was like
horses.
my
Yeah.
worst. Like I just I hate pet peeves. But like that's I only have one, and it's people who drive slow in the fast lane.
Yeah.
And people who are, and maybe a second, people who call their dog stubborn. But anyway, I digress. Stubborn, is equivalent to a dog not being motivated enough, or being too scared, or too stressed, or in an environment they can't handle. They're having a hard time. So whenever people tell me their dog is stubborn, I automatically know, okay, well, that dog's having a hard time. Why? Is it fearful? Is it stressed? Is it sick? Dogs aren't willfully stubborn. There's some breeds that are, like cats, that are a little more, they have it's more challenging to motivate them.
Well, they're
Huskies, for one.
discerning. We just call that discerning. They're not
Yeah,
stubborn.
they're doing a
discerning.
cost benefit analysis
Right.
constantly,
Yeah.
but they're not being stubborn.
Mm-mm.
So that, I think, in the industry, if I could abolish that one word,
Oh,
or that
it would help
one
horses
thought.
so much. It would help horses so much
Yeah.
if people understood that stubborn isn't
Yes.
the thing. It's, fear. It's not understanding. You're not asking the
Mhm.
question that they can understand, things like that. And you know what? It's children too. Oh, my kid's so stubborn. It's like, no,
Ugh.
it's a whole thing,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
what is going on? That paradigm again, like when you have children with adverse childhood experiences and they
Yeah.
in air quotes again, misbehave, which is a form of
Yeah.
communication. Okay. So
Yeah.
instead of um, not what's wrong with you, which is our instinct, what's wrong with you? You're
Correct.
a terrible child. What's wrong with you? No, what happened to you?
Hmm.
Why is this emotional state, this
Yeah.
dysregulation? What's happened?
Why are you
If we could
having a hard
always,
time?
if we could always ask the dog, you know, why,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to you are bad,
Yeah. Well, they're
So
trying to tell us, we just
everything
have
is
to listen.
communication.
We have to look for
All,
it. Yeah.
all, all movement, everything is
Hmm.
communication. It's just we're not
Absolutely.
listening. Human beings, we're
Yep.
just so above everything. We're not listening.
I know.
So interesting.
Oh,
Okay,
it's frustrating, but yeah.
well, it's going to get better because they're going to go to your site and learn more things, and
Yeah.
we're going to be better for our dogs. Okay, what inspires and motivates you to do what you do, and what is your true purpose in the world?
Well, this is my true purpose, for
Great.
sure. I love working with people. I love working with dogs. I just It's so rewarding for me to see the light bulb go on in someone's head when they just realize, like, oh my God, that's what my dog's been trying to tell me, or
Yeah,
that's how I can help my dog.
and they do
You
want to
know,
help. They do want to help.
they do. I mean, these are their, you know, children, or their highest commodities are their pets, and people just don't know how to interpret, or communicate with their animals, and
Hmm.
it's just so rewarding for me to do that,
That's
and
good.
that is my purpose. Like I said,
Okay,
it's my
well,
legacy,
that's a good thing. How
as
do
small
we
as it is.
oh no, I think it's important. Couple two things. One first, how do we find you? So like we're going to have your all of your links and everything in the show notes, but just tell us
Okay.
how to find you, and then like what you can do for people, like if they have questions, they have, how do we find you?
Well, the easiest way is my website, which
Hmm.
is wagandtrain.com.
Okay. And so they can go there, check that out, send you an email message,
Sure.
things like that. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. I mean, my
Great.
email's Carrie at wagandtrain.com.
Okay.
But my website has all the information on it too. And you can learn all about the gut brain axis and, you know, behavior modification on there too. I have lots of blogs, videos, not as
I
many as
love
I'd
that when
like.
people are so
But
generous with information. And
I
that's
try to
really
be.
wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. And then I have another question for you because
Sure.
you're such a wealth of information. To me, you have such an interesting story. Um, and it's not easy in this world anymore, but I mean, are you going to write a
Hmm.
book? Because I would read your book.
I am writing a book.
Ah,
Just,
there it
I
is.
need
Good.
like 7 more hours in the day to finish it for the next 6 months. Yeah, I'm writing a book on treating anxiety and aggression through healing leaky gut.
There you go. And I bet there's principles apply to people too. So I just find
Absolutely.
this whole thing,
Hmm.
yeah, we're gonna okay, so when you get that going, we'll have you back on because we
Okay.
definitely want to learn more about that.
I'll be 80 by then. No, I'm joking. I'm trying.
Yeah, I'm supposed to write a book about all our adventures as an animal actor trainer. I'm supposed to.
Oh,
I've been,
yeah.
because we have 30 years of that, and there are
Yeah.
some stories. But first of all, not a writer. Problem.
Oh, yeah. That's a problem. I love writing. I just don't have time.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Someday.
Well, Carrie, this has been so informative, and I know that people are going to be really interested in this subject,
Good.
knowing that the dogs aren't bad; they just need help.
Mhm.
That's a great premise to
We're
start
having a
with.
hard time.
They're having a hard time, aren't we all in some ways? But
Yes.
we do love our dogs. We don't want them to
We
have a hard time,
do.
and they're so good for us. All they want to
Mhm.
do is like make us happy. What species is like that? That just wants so much to be part of the family, part of the team, part of the I'm
Yeah,
with you
that's all they
fellas.
want.
So that's
Yeah.
pretty great. So I thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you for
much.
having me. This was
I,
wonderful.
okay.